Right, time to get my hands woolly and get started making this Christmas doll collection in record time. Will I prevail or will I run out of time? I'm currently in the throes of creating a trio of sisters inspired by the Christmas spirit. Last time, I left you with just a hint of what they were to become, and the very next day after publishing that video, I started in earnest with their creation. The first thing to do was unearth my most recent birthday present, my Bernina 802. I found it at the same thrift store where I found the old Treadle Viking Husqvarna. This store is the repository of treasures with my name on them. I brought her home on the bus, much to the curious stares of my dear Portuguese fellow travelers. A quick inspection, some YouTube videos on how to clean and grease her, and voila! She sews smoothly and purrs like a kitten. She came with a little case, sewing feet, the expandable table, and the carrying case. It's Providence she hasn't lost her things over the years. Once I knew the machine was good to go, it was time to get right down to it. Starting by pulling a piece of dollskin fabric, in this case Liviala cotton jersey, manufactured in Switzerland. This is the heavyweight option, which I've been using on my dolls since 2011 when I created Eva. I like to trace the doll bodies on the wrong side of the skin, using a soft left pencil, and then I space the pattern enough so that I can cut a nice seam allowance. I am the kind of doll maker who traces, then sews, then cuts. Not the other way around. I find I can maneuver the jersey much better under the sewing machine if I keep the pieces as full and flat as possible. If I were to cut all those curves and then sew by using the raw edge as my guide, I would most definitely stretch the fabric too much, resulting in the shovel body pieces and the knit grain all over the place. So my method has been working great so far, except when I use this pattern that has a 3-part foot. In this case, I do have to cut the leg seam allowances, but only after they have been sewn. Normally, I sew 2 seams on the bodies of my dolls to have very strong seams, as I use a wool one to roll the wool batting and stuff them. In this case, the dolls are so little that I don't need to do that. 1 Bernina strong seam is more than enough. I trace, sew, cut, turn right side out. That's the name of the game. A thing I do is to add the little thumb in a fabric marker so that I can see it better as I'm sewing the thumbs. Later in the video, I show you a little trick I use to stuff such tiny thumbs. People ask me all the time what I like to do first, and I like to sew the body of the doll first so I can then dive with abandon into sculpting the head, which is my most favorite part. I normally start by rolling a very tight ball of wool with almost no give on the ball so that I can needle felt the facial features, knowing there's almost no air inside the ball and the features will stay put. Building the heads takes a really long time, and the more depth you give to the face, the more hours you add. I do love needle felting, so I don't complain. I will leave you with these scenes of my felting process so you can enjoy it without having to read me or hear me talk.
Once the heads are sculpted, I give them a spine. This serves two main purposes. It stabilizes the head and ensures it will be well attached to the body, and also to have something coming down from the head when it comes to making the face skins cover, which is much easier to work with if you have a neck or spine on the head of your doll. Then it was time to take a little break and go and gather some supplies to inspire ourselves for their clothes. The city is now full of Christmas lights and the roasted chestnuts waft through the air. Lots of people are wearing heavier jackets, while we are used to the Canadian winter, so for us the weather feels more like late summer or early fall. The markets and stores are now full of Christmas trees, which helps so much to put me in the right spirit to work in this doll collection. Do you have a special treat to eat in preparation for Christmas? I hope to keep exploring Portugal's culinary traditions. Let me know if you have something you love and recommend. The next day, I got to work bright and early, and it has been my schedule this whole week. Get into the studio as soon as I can and stay in there until the light dies out. I love covering the dolls' heads with the skin cover. It's like I'm dressing them.
I like to take my time with certain steps. Closing the skin cover for the dolls' heads is one of them. Sometimes I use whip stitch to close the head skin cover. Other days I use ladder stitch. It really depends on my mood. Embroidering the eyes only happens for me with very good light and when I am well rested. My eyes are not what they used to be anymore. Back when I started making dolls 17 years ago, I would do all my work, including the embroidery, at night. This year, I started experimenting with giving the dolls very furry eyelashes. It happened first with a trio of wool moth fairies. I know, very cheeky. I tried 3 different techniques with those dolls, so I knew which one was my favorite to try with them now. The technique involves using the same fiber I will be using for their hair to do turkey work embroidery stitch on the upper side of the eyes, giving them a tiny line of fabric glue at the root so that they stay put, cutting the eyelashes, curling them, and then breathing again. It's very unnerving to use scissors so close to the eye embroidery. I sweat and cry just from the nerves. So glad that is over with no surgeries needed. For some reason, I felt like these girls need to be quite tubby around their middle, so I gave them slightly chubbier bellies and fatter thighs. Since they're so small, I like to fill their bellies with doll-making glass beads to add weight and stabilize them when they sit. I place the beads inside a little pouch, which I also fill up with wool. There's a lot of hand sewing involved in assembling the dolls this way, but sewing by hand is one of my many doll making predilections. I really enjoy it and I think it adds so much character and care to the doll's personality. So this is the state of the madness. Half stuffed legs, unstuffed arms, bodies. I still need to cut their eyelashes a little bit, and yeah, that's what's going on. Though the legs and arms are sewn in the machine, there are still things I need to do by hand, and which require measurements and paying attention so I don't end up with a longer arm or a leg. Don't ask me how I know this. To stuff little thumbs like this, I make 2 or 3 knots with a piece of wool batting, and then I use the hemostats to place that little knot inside the thumb. Makes for very perky hands with cute thumbs on the dolls. We are now nearing the actual completion of the dolls, and it will be time to start cutting the fabrics and making their clothes, but not yet. I made a lot of progress on them this week, and soon I will be sewing up a storm with the help of the Husqvarna and the Bernina. I hope you can join me next week and see whether I made the mark and finish the dolls in time. On next week's episode, I will show you how I make their hair, their clothes, and a few accessories I have in mind. Do you have any ideas of what they will be wearing? It will be so cool to see whether you're on the same vibe as me regarding these dolls, so let me know in the comments if you have any ideas as to what I'm up to. Thanks for spending time with me making dolls.